Kai, you ready?
No, we're going to wait one moment, please.
Yeah.
Folks are still coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, as you enter the NAACP forum, we welcome you. Give us just a moment as we allow more of our participants to join in the meeting. We'll start in just a moment. We thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the NAACP Candidates Forum for Moline's municipal elections. We'll be starting momentarily. This time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the NAACP's Candidates Forum for the Moline municipal elections. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Berlinda Tyler Jameson, President Emeritus of the Rock Island County NAACP.
Well, thank you so much, Kai, for that introduction. President Emeritus, for those of you who may be saying what, it means I'm the immediate past president of the Rock Island County NAACP, and I'm currently the chair of the Candidates Forum. And on behalf of the members of the Rock Island County NAACP, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you in particular to all of the candidates for office in the city of Moline, whom we invited to participate because they all quickly said yes to that invitation, and we certainly appreciate it. You're not here to hear me speak, so I'm going to be very brief. Let me just say that the purpose of this meeting tonight, or this forum tonight, is to have those persons who wish to serve in an elected position, the city of Moline. It's our purpose to have them be here to speak to their positions on certain issues that you will hear about later on. What we as the NAACP really want is for you to be informed about developments, plans, whatever, because we need you to be able to use your voice to make informed decisions when you vote. And that is the purpose of this. I also want to thank Dr. Yolanda Granberry Pugh. She is a teacher with the Rock Island Modern School District for many years. She's a longtime member of the Rock Island County NAACP. And she's also Kamala Harris's sorority sister, Alpha Kappa Alpha, as am I. Having stated that, then I happily turn this over to, let me go back a bit. I must thank Augustana College, Kai Swanson, Rita Gustafson, for their impeccable assistance in providing the technology that we need to carry forward this Zoom webinar, and their skill with this. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, Augustana College. Now, having stated that, I happily turn this over to Dr. Yolanda Granberry Pugh. Yolanda.
Good evening, everyone. First, we'll start with the instructions. Please turn cell phones off or to vibrate. A total of 5 prepared questions will be asked of each candidate. Each will be asked to respond to the same question. Each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for self-introduction and opening statements. Excuse me. 1 minute to answer each question, and 1 minute for a closing statement. The timekeeper will flash a yellow card on the screen when it is close to the end of the time allotted and will flash a red card when time has concluded. Questions will be asked in alphabetical order. That's for me. You don't have to worry about that. So let's go ahead and get started with the introductions. Stephani Acri.
Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining this discussion, and thank you to the Rock Island County NAACP for organizing this candidate forum. I'm Stephani Acri, and I've been honored to serve Moline residents for 10 years, the first 6 as Alderman at Large, and for the past 4 as mayor. We've worked hard to make sure that we always choose what is in the best interests of our residents. The city's residents and businesses are the customers of the city and should be treated that way. This philosophy has meant 2 things for Moline residents. First, more jobs and opportunities to prosper in Moline. Second, as good stewards of your tax dollars, we've put money back in your pocket by cutting the city's debt and tax rate. We've kept our promises of the last 4 years, and because of our hard work together, we are ready to move into the next chapter of Moline's bright future. And I'm asking for your vote for Mayor of Moline.
Okay, thank you. Sonia Berg.
Good evening, all. Thank you to the NAACP for hosting this forum. I'm Sonia Berg. I am the current Alderman at Large. I have served since 2017. I'm a community realtor. I work for Rural and Rural. I'm married with 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. I was born, raised in Moline. And the reason I'm running for Alderman at Large again is because I love what we've accomplished, and I just want to keep moving Moline forward. Thank you, and I ask for your support, your vote on April 6th.
Okay, thank you. Alvaro Macias. Am I saying that correct, the last name?
Alvaro Macias.
Alvaro Macias. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the NAACP for putting this together. As we just heard, Alvaro Macias. I live here on Moline 2nd Ward. I was born in Mexico City, but my family has a long history here. My grandfather was born in Moline, and my great-grandfather used to come here and work, but they would always go back because of the cold weather. They didn't like the winters. So I have long roots here. I have a lot of family here. I really care about Moline. And, when you see a lot of the news out there and you hear from people, all the things that are going on with the city, it piques your interest. Myself, my background is in community development. I work for a credit union that is a not-for-profit cooperative. So I think the skills that I have in working in an organization that make sure that they take care of their member owners, it can really translate and bring a lot to the table when it comes to municipality. So I ask for your confidence and your vote.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Pat O'Brien.
Sorry about that. Good evening, and thank the NAACP and Augustana College for hosting this forum. My name is Pat O'Brien, and I am running for 6th Ward Alderman. I'm currently serving on the county board, and I was on the city council from 1997 to 2005. In the last century, I was on the council, could say that, to 2005 in the 2nd Ward. And I currently work for the Illinois State Treasurer, returning unclaimed property. And Mayor, I think we returned some money to you guys a couple of years ago. And I think we have some more money for you. Anyway, I'm running, you're gonna hear a lot of talk about taxes and budgets tonight. And I welcome that discussion, as we all should. But there's certain things that you don't scrimp money on. And as my grandpa used to say, there's 2 things, a good pair of shoes and flowers for your wife. And that worked out pretty good for him. He's married for about 50 years. So Cecilia and I are working on 40 years, over past 40 years.
Mr. O'Brien.
But anyway, there's other things that you don't scrimp on, and that's mechanical.
Mr. O'Brien, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've run out of time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll talk later.
Okay. David Parker.
Thank you. My name is David Parker. I've had the honor of representing the 2nd Ward in Moline for over 8 years. When asked what I'm most proud of, it is being your voice at City Hall. In preparing for this event, I spoke with my friend and colleague, Dr. Melvin Grimes, the Executive Director of Churches United. What I quickly learned during this conversation is that although I thought I knew everything and had all the answers, in reality, I still have much to learn. I will answer the questions offered here this evening to the best of my ability, but please understand that every important topic discussed here tonight is ever changing. And although we may be moving in the right, more enlightened direction, it is a journey, not a destination. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sangeetha Rayapati.
Yes, hello Moliners, and thank you to everyone for being here tonight. I'm Sangeetha Rayapati, and I currently serve as president of our Moline Cove Valley School Board. And with just over a week to go until Election Day, I want to take the time to let you know that I'm running for mayor to make life in Moline better for all of us. And I truly believe that in order to do that, we need to change our city leadership and revitalize our town with new perspectives and ideas that will help turn the page on the chaos and damage to our reputation of the last 4 years. On April 6th, we can vote for positive change or vote for more of the same. We continue to lose residents to other cities, businesses create growth elsewhere, and more communities are benefiting from our talented former staff. Our city looks like an unreliable partner, and our community cannot risk more of the same approach. My years of service have taught me what's possible to expect from local leadership. We should expect teamwork, not blame games, service, not power plays, community engagement, not distance and division, and emphasis on local priorities and proactive decision making. Thank you for your time tonight. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. James Patrick Schmidt.
Hi, I'm James Patrick Schmidt, and I am running for Alderman at Large in the city of Moline. And I'm running because on our city council, we need new perspectives and new priorities. We need to be focused on how we can build the city up. I don't like when I look around and all I hear coming from our leaders is talk about what we've been able to do to cut. We're making Moline smaller. We're cutting back on those things, and we're feeling it in the services that we have that are not making it to our residents. I believe in serving all Moline. And I think we do that by focusing on how we can expand our growth and move forward into building up the city. Now, that's not the same as adding taxes or raising taxes. Okay, and that's not what we're advocating for. That's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm talking about is getting down into the details and making those smart decisions, working hard to make sure that we're doing what needs to be done, hiring an economic development director, working with staff, not antagonizing our local city partners so that we can build the city up and that we can expand our sources by building Moline and having more available. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Keven Schoonmaker.
Hi, thank you to the NAACP and to Augustana College for hosting. I am Keven Schoonmaker. I'm the current 6th Ward Alderman. I have been on the council for 12 years. I'm a community banker, and I have 4 generations of family living in Moline. And I think cutting is vitally important. I think all of our residents benefit by cutting taxes, but maintaining services, very focused on balancing the budget and very focused on cutting debt. So cutting is not a bad word, it's a good word. There's fiscal responsibility in that cutting, and I hope to be able to continue to manage the finances of the city and to help deliver excellent services going forward. I thank you for your time. I hope for your vote in the 6th Ward. Thank you.
I apologize, sorry. Matthew Timion.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Matt Timion. I am running for the 4th Ward in Moline City Council. I grew up in the 4th Ward and moved back here as an adult because it's my home. And when we came back, we saw a lot of the same things that Moliners see, which is empty storefronts and issues with sidewalks and roads. And the more we looked into it, the more it became very clear that there was a disconnect between what people needed on the city level and what city council was actually doing. So instead of complaining about it, I decided to be a part of the solution. A very great example of that is we talk about cutting property tax and how much that benefits people, but there's a lot of people in my neighborhood that don't own property, they're renters. And these are the people that need help the most, and they're not benefiting from this property tax reduction. So I'm running to be a voice for people and to speak to people that can bridge the gap between the average Moliner and City Council. So once again, my name is Matt Timion, and I'm asking for your vote for the 4th Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, John Zelnio. Did I get that right?
Good evening. Hi, my name is John Zelnio, and thanks for the invitation tonight. I'm a candidate for the 4th Ward Alderman position, and my plan is to continue the financial success and the fiscal responsibility of the current City Council. I bring to the table 3 years of council experience. I'm the owner of Zelnio Construction, and we've been in business for 30+ years. I'm also personally invested in Moline, not only residentially, but commercially as well. My goal tonight is to honestly and hopefully somewhat intelligently answer your questions in order to gain not only your trust, but your vote in the upcoming election on April 6th. Again, thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to share some of my ideas this evening.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Are you guys ready? I needed to make one correction. You get 2 minutes to answer the questions, not 1. So if that made anyone nervous, I'm sorry. Question number 1. What is your plan for the city of Moline? Relatedly, please briefly describe the most current issues negatively impacting your city and your plans to resolve them. Please also describe the 2 most positive achievements of Moline. And we will start with Stephani Acri.
Hi, everybody. This is a great question. I love this question. I think I'm going to answer it backwards, though. The positive achievement wasn't by the city, it was by the residents of Moline. It was amazing to be a part of the way this community came together to support each other through the pandemic. There were a couple of things, though, that I wanted to highlight that the city engaged in during that to come alongside the residents and businesses that were struggling. And one of those was our business support program. So there were lots of different components of it, but one of the important things was a platform that helped guide businesses to the resources that were available. We also reinvested some funding that came to us as a city that would have offset our costs. We were able to shift that over to our businesses to help bridge that gap. And it wasn't making them whole, but it was giving them an opportunity to survive, which is so critical during really, really distressing times like that. Regarding our people, as soon as things started shutting down, it became quite obvious that we had to be clever about how we were going to respond to it so that people could continue on with a reasonably productive life. And one of the things that we focused on was digital equity. So we had students in the school system that didn't have access to the internet. The city came alongside those students to help support them in a way that they can continue to do e-learning. We had seniors that didn't have access to the internet. They weren't able to do their healthcare, pay their bills. We came alongside them with our partner at Project Now. We also did the same for Head Start. So I think that it's things like that in the middle of a distressing time and understanding that we have a long recovery ahead of us, and that relationship is not different. It's going to evolve, and we're going to have to continue to be smart about how we help each other through the recovery period as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sonia Berg.
Good evening. So to start, what is the plan for the city of Moline? My plan is to continue to work with our city council and mayor and to continue to be fiscally responsible. We have to continue to improve the roads and the snow removal and our leaf collection, and to add in infrastructure. We are in the process of we already started to hire a city administrator, and next we're going to hire a economic development director. The 2 positive achievements I feel that are positive for the city are the balanced budgets that we did, especially during COVID during this time. and keeping the tax levy rate down. You know, another thing I wanted to add, even though I know you said only 2, but I know I still have some time. So I wanted to add that, you know, I'm really proud of our city council and mayor for rejecting the bid that came in from MetroNet that we're trying to bring in the internet. But they didn't want to service the low to moderate income households in the city of Moline. And I'm really proud that we stood up for our residents, and we're the voice for our residents, and said, no, we're not going to choose them since they could not service our low to moderate income households. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macias.
Yes, we just need to change the current trend. We've been experiencing a mass exodus of top talent, individuals with a lot of experience, years of experience in the organization, and that's institutional knowledge that is gone forever. An organization will suffer if you lose a lot of that institutional knowledge. It's a fact. And the other thing, not only those high-level positions, but there's positions in between that we've lost a lot of individuals. I believe just yesterday, somebody else left the city. And people are not happy. I've heard so many times over and over that it's a bad culture, and it's got to change. How are we supposed to get the best talent if the first thing you Google about the city is about the problem of people just leaving? And these are good paying jobs. You're talking about city administrators, development directors. Those are very good paying jobs with good benefits. Those positions, when you look around at other cities, those individuals stay there till retirement or a very long time. Those are red flags that really motivated me to look into it. And I decided, you know what, I could bring something to the table here. So that's the biggest priority. And by electing myself, it sends a message that we're ready for change. As far as the positive, I think the new bridge, I actually work in Iowa, live here in Moline, and I love it. It's super fast. It's really connecting us. And there's a huge opportunity there with the spot in downtown that we'll be able to develop. And I think you really need to have a very creative, big ideas. You need fresh perspectives because from what I've seen, I'm not impressed with some of the ideas of just cutting to be sustainable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. I would like a full inventory of all abandoned houses we have in Moline, houses that are uninhabitable. We need to bring them up to code, or either in some cases, we've got some buildings that need to be demolished. I think we can use that to either build habitat homes, which we did in the past in the second ward, or we can turn it into more green space. We need more green space. The pandemic showed that we need a lot more green space for our kids to play close to home. Nobody wants their kids to be roaming, too far from home. More recreation, more comprehensive code to encourage folks to fix up older homes. We're landlocked in Moline. We tried to grow years ago when I was on the council. It had kind of mixed results. I think we need to have all of our housing inventory at a higher level. As they say, a rising tide lifts all boats, and we need to make sure that all our housing is viable for whatever happens. Western Illinois, if we get an influx of more people coming in, professors, we need to have good housing for them. We want them to live here in Moline. We need to change that narrative of new people coming to the Quad Cities and going to the Iowa side. I don't want to see that anymore. I want them to go to Moline. I want them to use Moline services. And I think we've got great services. I feel like we missed an opportunity to sell water to the Rock Island Arsenal. I don't know anybody that's got more money in the federal government. They've got a printing press out there. They can print money. But I would like to see us utilize those services even more so. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Over the past 4 years, we've made tremendous progress for the city, even in the face of the pandemic. We have lowered the residents' property tax rate annually, reduced the debt substantially, and continually operated the city with a balanced and responsible budget. That being said, I believe our work is far from complete. The greatest negative impact to our city at this moment and for the past several years is the public safety pension crisis in Illinois. Most of the city's portion of the property tax goes to fund these out of control pensions set by the state mandates. This makes a real challenge for us to be able to afford to take care of the issues that impact our residents daily. But that's just the negative. The two most positive achievements is our ability to be good stewards of the residents' money, making it possible to provide consistently great services to the residents and our businesses. Additionally, I believe that we have built an outstanding staff. It took us some time to get where we are. We still have some key positions to fill. Many have criticized the process, but I would challenge any city our size to measure their staff to ours in willingness to perform and in results. This goes for both internal and external job functions. They are brilliant, they work hard, and they give until they can give no more. And I am very proud of every single person that works for the city of Moline. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rayapati?
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem.
My plan is, as I've stated previously, to calm the chaos we've seen in staffing, restore our reputation to make us a partner that people want to do business with, and really put people and the services we say we'll provide back at the center of what we do. I don't believe it's sound financial policy to not have key staffing positions in place for nearly 2 years in economic development. It's not sound organizational practice to have turnover of staff at the rates that we've seen, because the organization is constantly trying to onboard new voices, new staff, and our community partners then are left waiting with their projects for the people to be ready to do the work with them. So my plan would be to work with council to right-size our staff so that we can meet the needs we have in the community and prioritize our basic services like our roads, our infrastructure, and our library. I get really nervous when I start to hear plans to add fees at the library. We pay enough in taxes already, and I don't believe that municipal government is a business. It's a service organization, and we shouldn't be asking residents to pay more in fees. So I'm very concerned about that. I plan to watch that very carefully. In terms of positive achievements, I want to credit Jane O'Brien and the Moline Community Development Corporation. I think she's done a wonderful job with targeted neighborhoods and really working to bring pride and improvements to those. And I also think that Jeff Manis and our Moline Center partners have done an amazing job working with our businesses to really be flexible during a very, very difficult year for them. And so I'm very glad that we have those programs and those people in place to help move things forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. One of the really key things to what I want to bring to City Council is to really take a focus on proactive city services, because so much of what we do is reactive and some of it has to be, but we need to be finding ways to reach out further into the community. And I'm talking about things like actively seeking out potholes, not relying on residents to call into their alderman to say that it's done, to call into the city or to report it through an app. Because not everyone has the technology capability, not everyone knows who to call or even has a comfort level interacting with their city. And a lot of those people are our most disadvantaged members of the community. And I think we need to do more to make sure that we're providing services to them. And potholes is just one example, but we need to have that mentality across all of our city services. I also think that we need to ensure that as we work on city projects and we move things forward, that we are always figuring out how we can invest in a way that is going to put as much money back into this community, working with local partners, working with local contractors and local firms in order to ensure that that money is also helping to build up our community and not going somewhere else. The biggest problem that I felt, I think is definitely in the understaffing and the turmoil we have in so much of our staffing with the city. And I think that's leading to this feeling of not getting the services we need, because as long as I've lived here every year, it feels like the services are diminishing. And that's the same feeling that so many people, when I've been knocking on their doors these last few months, they've been sharing that same feeling. And it's not just a function of the pandemic, though that obviously has presented its own challenges, but this has been an ongoing challenge as we've been cutting and cutting. We are not maintaining our services. The two things I want to call attention to that are very positive is I'm just very proud of everything we've accomplished with our library. It is just a world-class facility and is able to serve our community and reaches out to provide so much more than just book lending, but help with passports and tax forms and computer access for people who don't have it. I just think that that is something that deserves our full support. And also just the resilience of our community in the COVID-19 pandemic, especially as a person with family members who are at high risk.
Mr. Schmidt? Thank you. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you. So the plan is to continue to balance the budget, to reduce property taxes for our citizens and our businesses, which brings more citizens and more businesses to the city. It makes it more attractive. To work with our partners, to work with the county and the other cities to continue to make the Illinois side more attractive and to continue to deliver top-notch services. I know that several of the candidates have knocked the services of Moline, but I've got to say that the people that we have on staff are absolutely top-notch, and we have continued to deliver great services throughout, and especially throughout the pandemic. And it's because our employees have stepped up and gone the extra mile and done a great job. And the other piece, it's important to me, I'm kind of a fiscal guy, it's very important to me that we work on reducing the city's debt, and we've done a great job of that over the past 4 years. If we continue to effectively accomplish these things, that only helps us to attract more people, more residents, more businesses to Moline, and that's why that's such an important part of the plan. You asked for the most negative thing, and clearly it's COVID, and what that's done to Moline. We're a strong retail sales tax environment. We have retail sales tax in restaurants, hotel, motels, obviously very strong in all of those categories, and those businesses have been terribly hurt and affected by the COVID pandemic. I've been a part of a team that's rolling out financial assistance to some of those people through the city, mainly through CDBG money. And as a matter of fact, today, Alderman Parker and I met with city staff on round 2 of the CDBG funds that are in place to assist, and those are getting ready to roll out. So as they become available, we've been very proactive in getting that money out, and Jeff Manis and his team have done a great job of that. And we have several city staff.
Mr. Schoonmaker?
Yeah, is that 2 minutes? I apologize.
Yes, not a problem.
Didn't get to my positives. Thank you.
Mr. Timion?
Thank you very much. Mr. Schoonmaker mentioned that lower property taxes invite more people to the city, and the lower tax rate levy of about $8 per home, as far as I know, is not encouraging anyone to move here. What encourages people to move here is a city that is responsive to them. And what I've experienced in talking to residents the last few months is they've experienced a city that is unresponsive to their needs, whether it is calling to City Hall and not having anyone answer, or just not having anyone reach back out to the point where they are no longer attempting to call. And so what I think the biggest plan for me is having a more involved community. And that means ward meetings. It means hearing ideas from people that have been historically left out of the conversation. And it is so vital for those people to be active participants in the city itself. And right now they're not, they feel left out. The biggest pressing issue is related to that. And it, of course, is the understaffing that we've experienced. This is symptomatic of the understaffing. There's just not people to man the phones and to respond accordingly. The best achievements that I can mention, we keep mentioning Jeff Manis. Moline Center was able to adapt really quickly to COVID-19, and they helped a lot of the restaurants have outdoor dining downtown. And it really not only saved the businesses, but it also helped people return to a sense of normalcy in the community when they needed it the most. And it was really, really beneficial. And the second, and I can't stress this enough, the Handle with Care program that the police department partnered with the school board. Early childhood trauma is a huge predictor for suicide, mental illness, criminality down the road. And the fact that the police department partnered with the school program to help set up a notification platform to help really these kids that need it the most just get the services they need, I think is top notch. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Zelnio?
Thank you. For me, it's fiscal responsibility and improving the communication with the residents and the employees. In the conversations that I've had with some of Moline's residents and the employees, I feel there is a thirst for a better dialogue, a pathway for them to share their ideas and their needs. And part of my plan is to establish an open and positive back and forth in order to share the information, their ideas and solutions to our great employees, along with the residents. You know, the key to this, I feel, is good listening skills, and communication is the key to success. It's simple and it's easy, but it always seems to be the tallest hurdle to get over at times. Yeah, I think that positive achievements for Moline is the reduction in debt. It was reduced by $25 million, and that saves the city over $1 million in debt interest costs every year. And that money can be spent on a lot of essential services to make things better. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that funding becomes a problem. And by reducing that debt and saving that kind of money, it frees up that funding for that. The number two outstanding thing, I think, in Moline is our public safety. The public safety that Moline provides is unmatched. Those guys do a fantastic, guys and gals, they do a fantastic job, and we can't ask for much more than that. And also the fantastic public service. With the derecho that we fought, the ice storms, the leaf pickup, and all this was done with a $6 million deficit or a reduction in income. And I think the council did an outstanding job of pulling that together and making things work here in the city of Moline. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. How would you reform the police department in the city? Is there a provision in the state or national police reform legislation that you particularly oppose, support, and why? And Ms. Berg, we will start with you.
Thank you. All police departments can do better. Our community can do better. We can all do better personally and professionally. I believe that the police department needs to be involved in any reforms. They should have a seat at the table when discussing reforms. There needs to be more community input partnered with the police departments. We have to have an open dialogue with our constituents, the police department, and our legislators. You asked why if there is a provision in the state or national police reform legislation that I oppose or support, and why. And I would say I would support the body cameras, which we have funded. And, you know, the body cameras, you know, protect both sides of it. You know, they're beneficial for both. And so we've always, when the body cameras come up, you know, we do support both sides. And, you know, I believe that we should have, the officers should have access as well to the cameras, because there is a gadget in there where they can't delete anything, but it's going to, like I said, it will protect both the criminal and the police as well. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macias?
Well, first I want to start off by saying that law enforcement, it's a very tough job. It can be dangerous. In fact, first year of college, I actually studied criminal justice, and I learned quite a bit. I learned of just how it affects your life. It's not a job that you just clock out. You're an officer 24/7. It affects your relationships with people, how people interact with you as soon as they find out. Even the divorce rate, I remember hearing how it was higher. And then ultimately, you may even be called to give the ultimate sacrifice. It's dangerous, just like what we saw in Boulder, Colorado, and here in Anamosa in a prison. So it's a very tough job. These are individuals who genuinely want to do something good. But I also learned early on in my that short journey, you know, a sad and ugly lesson. Our professor, when he was first telling us about the program, in the early 90s, when the Rodney King beating took place, the new semester began, and he began by asking all the students, how many of you thought the Rodney King beating was justified? And over half of the students raised their hand. He knew at that point that he needed to put an ethics course into the program. So this is 30 years ago. It'll be 30 years. So some things seem like they haven't changed. So obviously reform does help. I know Illinois just passed a reform bill. There are some aspects that concern law enforcement, but it really just starts with dialogue between the community, law enforcement. There has to be a mutual agreement because ultimately we both, the community and law enforcement, just want safe communities. And I'm supportive of body cameras, but they should be at the national level, and also a national registry for bad officers who actually make the job even worse for their peers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. By reform, I assume the question is about transparency. And I've been away from Moline politics for a while, but from what I've seen, there is transparency with the police department. And this is one thing I'll say that's positive about the Moline Police Department. I had a personal experience with a family member who is mentally ill. That's another issue that we ask police to deal with. And we need to provide training for police to deal with that. It was something so important to my wife and me. We presented an award to Officer Christopher Pickens, we were very impressed with the way he treated this family member. And we made an award and we took it down to City Hall and gave it to him. I think we need more of that encouragement of, counseling. We also need COP officers. COP officers are very important for the community. It not only puts the cop on the beat, it keeps communities safe. The kids get a chance to talk to the cops interact with the kids. They know what's going on the street. And I think for the officers themselves, they already do a good amount of, I would say, some social work out there. We need more training for that. We need more counseling for that. I think there's a spiritual aspect for people in such a stressful job. And as I say, I've been away for a while. I don't know if they still have a chaplain. I think that's an excellent thing for police to have.
Okay. Are you done?
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Parker.
Thank you. I believe that the Moline Police Department operates with a high level of accountability to those that they serve. Under the direction of Chief Darren Galt, he has instituted a variety of different policies that best live up to the motto to serve and protect. Relating to the recently passed Illinois police reform legislation, an area of concern is making various costly changes to how the municipal police function without the needed funding sources to support these changes. This is referred to as an unfunded mandate. One of these unfunded mandates has caused the city of Moline to absorb an additional $40,000 in unexpected academy costs for new officers. The new law ties much of the funding for these new mandates to traffic fines, which is already an unstable source of revenue. This is because judges have the ability to arbitrarily waive these fines. It also makes it necessary for our police force to spend their time trying to catch somebody doing something wrong, as opposed to building relationships and solving real crime to make our city a better place to live. When money from fines isn't there, it will end up being pushed down. The cost of those will be pushed down to the taxpayers. And just similar to that is the unfunded police academy. I have many friends that are policemen, and I stand, like I do with all the employees of the city, I stand firmly behind the Moline Police Force. I think they are world-class, and we are lucky to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rayapati?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Parker. I'm very confident in our police department. We have a chief who is very forward-thinking and has been working to hire officers with a variety of backgrounds and abilities. For example, if they speak multiple languages and can really reach to many, many constituencies. And as has been mentioned previously, he's also instituted policies that help build relationships between the community and the police. For example, the Handle with Care program that he developed with our superintendent, Dr. Savage. So those are really wonderful things to see. I know also that we even have cops in our force that have been positively influenced by police officers while they were students in our school system. And to me, that's proof that we're on the right track. And you know, unfortunately, sometimes we are asking as a culture our police to act like we ask teachers to act, which is to try to solve all the problems in our society. And then they're forced to try to do that with fewer and fewer resources. And so all of that brings us back to needing to make sure we grow our tax base so that we can pay for these requirements that are coming our way from forces outside of our municipality. So I really like to focus on local solutions for local problems when we can, and part of that is increasing our connections to the community. I've mentioned multiple times I'm interested in community conversations at the city level, like we've done on the school board. And between that and growing our tax base, not our tax rate, our base, we can really help provide what we need to our police department.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I think I agree with many of the people who have spoken, that I'm very happy with so many of the things we see in our police force, and I'm happy to see the leadership that Chief Galt has brought to our force and hope in moving us in that right direction. I think that one of the biggest areas I think where we need to focus our reforms is in something we do, like we do to so many of our city employees, but I think it draws extra stress in our police departments, is that we ask them to do too much. And we've seen some efforts by Chief Galt and support from the city in taking some of that back, and how we have started to work with additional social workers, additional support, responding to incidents, because in cases of mental health illness, in cases of someone dealing with an issue that does not require that sworn officer necessarily, it can be better if we send a person who is properly trained and properly equipped to handle that situation. You know, I appreciate that our police officers are willing to jump in, but they become that catch-all, and we need to find ways to support them by taking away some of those responsibilities. And not taking away, but letting them focus on their primary responsibilities and finding the resources to deal with those other responsibilities that they may be getting assigned. You know, the second piece of that is when we say that something must remain on the police officer's plates, that I think we need to ensure that they're receiving the training and that they're receiving the adequate follow-up, because it can be a very emotionally tough job. I've seen that in friends who have served on a force, and over time that can draw a distinction. And by helping those officers and giving them ways to cope and to deal with the situations they're put in daily in a healthy way, I think that will make a stronger and police force as we move through. As far as the components of the crime bill that we support, I am also in favor of body cameras, and I also am in favor of getting rid of cash bail. And some people will say that will make our community more dangerous, but I think we need to set cash bail aside and say, if that person is dangerous to the community, they shouldn't be able to get out just because they have enough money to pay the bail. And that's how those lines should be drawn.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schoonmaker.
Thank you. It seems that across many of these discussions, there's a lot of agreement, and I'm going to echo some of that. So there's always more we can do. But I think under Chief Galt and his leadership team, we've done a lot of great things. A couple of those, Moline is a leader. We've had body cameras since 2017, and we just again upgraded them in 2020 to the most current versions. We're far ahead of the state, and we're a leader in this area amongst our neighboring communities. So I think we've done a great job in that. I think that's very important. We found the funding for that, and I think that makes a big difference in policing. I also support additional training. The council has done that in the past. We've changed the way we do training. It's good for the officers. It's good for the community. So all across all avenues, it's a strong thing to have well-trained officers. When they are well-trained, they'll have more options to handle and diffuse situations, and just makes a better situation for everyone involved. In 2019, the city's training budget was raised by council and was almost doubled. And I am certainly in support of continued training, especially in our very changing times lot of laws changing, a lot of directives from the state changing. And if we can get more training for our officers, that's just going to make a better department. So continue to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Timion.
Hi, thank you very much. Recently, there was a mayor and city council in Ithaca, New York, who took a deep dive and examined what the police calls were and what the outcome was. They were looking at how many arrests were made, and they really started to see a pattern that for a lot of certain types of calls, arrests were never a part of the equation. These were calls like an abandoned vehicle, or someone broke down on the side of the road, or even things where they're setting up barricades at a parade. And so what they decided to do is, in instances like that, they did not send armed officers because they never know if there is someone there and what their previous trauma is, and how having a gun present might actually trigger a traumatic event. And so what they started doing was policing to the community in a responsible way. And I could envision a Moline where we look at the data in a very similar way, where the police force is not always armed and for a lot of calls. Just for the calls, it's totally necessary. For my own son, he had a mental health crisis and attempted suicide, and we called 911, and 2 armed officers came. And again, for a lot of people with trauma, that can be a trigger, seeing a gun present. And so I would, again, like to think of a way that we can use data and behavior to really inform how we police the community in the best way that benefits everyone. As for what I agree with on the recent reform bill, I will agree with Mr. Schmidt that cash bail, its elimination is a great thing for different reasons, though. It a lot of times incarcerating people, even just for a day or two for nonviolent crimes, can have lasting effects. People can lose their homes or their jobs or their families due to the lost wages that they might incur, whether they're guilty or not. If these are nonviolent offenses, we should not be holding people and incurring tax debt and paying for it, just for any period of time.
Mr. Timion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnio.
Thank you. I think there's always opportunities to enhance police departments, including Moline. As the world evolves and the city moves forward, law enforcement has to do the same thing. And we need to take advantage of all the new technologies and the tools and the new innovations. So important. And in order to adapt to all those new things, that's critical. Moline residents are very, very fortunate, as we've already heard, to have the outstanding police department we have, a department that's already ahead of the curve. That includes the body cameras that we've had for years. The training has been increased, and there's been a ban on chokeholds in the Quad Cities, at least the Illinois Quad Cities, for quite some time in my discussions with other policemen. And all this has been in place well before the new police legislation passed. Chief Galt's an excellent addition to Moline. He's just been here a few years and he's doing an outstanding job. He certainly understands the needs of our residents and will confidently make the adjustments and enhancements necessary to lead the way in his profession. All this comes with a cost, and the city needs to be prepared to handle that funding. So we got to be careful and navigate our way through that. But I'm confident that Mr. Galt will continue that success. His forward thinking will move us in the direction we need to go. As far as my thoughts on the new legislation, I pretty much think the jury's still out on that one. It's new, it's a change, but it's the law. And the police departments will have to make the adjustments and work with the new law. But I have great confidence in Moline Police Department, and I'm sure we will move forward and they will be able to take care of Moline as they have in the past. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Acri.
Hi. So I thanked the opportunity to be a part of this forum earlier, but I'm really grateful now. I think it's more more important for us to have a common understanding of what's happening in our community, and this is a way to get there. So a couple of people have mentioned about how cuts in services have been distressing to the community, but they also mentioned some increases in services. And so I don't think it's about cutting, it's about pivoting to today's needs. What do our residents need today? And one of them was Jane O'Brien with the Moline Community Development Corporation. I serve on that board, and we advocated for professional administration because that's really important. It's important to our neighborhoods. It's important for our properties that are needing to be rehabilitated. The other one that's been brought up a couple of times is Jeff Manis. He is new to the city. That position is new. That had been outsourced before. We brought that back in because it's so important. So those are shifts in the way that we're spending your tax dollars, and they're good shifts. And so, and I'm going to have to tell Chief Galt he needs to watch this recording if he's not watching it right now, because he's getting a lot of love tonight. But he has done a great job, but he's an example of turnover. You know, that's the good part of turnover. You know, we always have to be grateful for the service that has been provided and the foundation that's been laid by the people that were here. But the people that have come are amazing. And it really has created an environment that our future is limitless. We're in really good place. I do want to mention a couple of things with the police department. You all might not know, but they invested in a trailer, the trailer becoming this spring, and it's meant to be an outreach into the neighborhoods. So it's air conditioned, it's got computer services, it's got bathrooms. They'll use it to partner with the library and Project Now, do good things in the neighborhoods. And they also have a social worker on staff, an intern that's doing great jobs. We've had over 500 referrals to social work. It's not a crime, it's a social situation that needs to be addressed that way. So really good things are coming.
Right, thank you. All right, everyone, we are moving on to question number 3. Other than forming task force, concretely, what should the mayor and city council do to positively address the racial division in the city, which includes the police department, as well as the majority white community and minority groups such as African Americans, Hispanics, and Asian Americans? And we will start with Mr. Macias.
Thank you. First, I would just invite the mayor and council to spend some time with in money with minority-owned businesses, organizations, and also beyond election time. Build personal relationships with individuals who are of a different nationality, different backgrounds. That's how we get to progress. When you know people personally who are of different backgrounds, and that's when you really start empathizing and learning better, and that's how we can grow. Now, for the city, on the city level, and it's important because that's when you can invite individuals to be part of whether it's a committee, task force, or whatever that may be. I know there was a group before that was enacted, but they never met. I personally have created relationships in my professional work with diverse groups. I have a community development advisory council, and we've been meeting quarterly for the last 10 years. And that's how you build relationships. It's not just let's create a task force for the next 6 months, next year. It's a long marathon. And that's a mentality. So once you start an advisory committee or some sort of group like that, keep it forever. You want to have those relationships forever. You can expand, you can add to it. That's how you would build up on it. And when it comes to the police, then those are the same people that can help you expand to get an even more diverse pool of applicants. Because I know it's hard to even get people to apply for those jobs. And yes, and I've seen that the city of Moline has done a wonderful job as of late with more women and people of diverse backgrounds in the police force. So I would just say start with personal relationships, and you're going to see a natural progression. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, actually, I forgot. I looked and then I forgot. I apologize. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Macias. You know, when I was on the council before, we had a lot of neighborhood groups where people get together We had Overlook, we had Stewartville. These are great instruments, if you will, for the neighbors to get together. It cuts down on nuisance calls. It actually helps the police, because when you're talking to your neighbor, you can talk to your neighbor and the issues that are affecting you. I think it's important to have these type of meetings, like ward meetings that I had a lot of when I was on the city council before. Noticeably, there's a few less of them on this end of town, neighborhood groups. But I think those are very important to improve the quality of life of the neighborhoods. When people are, shut up in their homes, like we've been with COVID, that's obviously a horrible thing. Communication with people is always good. These groups, you usually invite like a COP officer, police officer, the alderman's there. You get, various people from the city. If you got a capital improvement program going on, you invite, the whole neighborhood that's wanting to know what's going on, when the streets will be closed, that type of thing. But I think it's very important that when you have these type of groups, you include everybody, be as inclusive as you can. If you don't have somebody that can be a Spanish, you need to get a Spanish speaker there, and to communicate if we have people that are non-Spanish speakers. And I think it's an excellent venue for people to communicate and talk about the issues affecting them. They're the ones paying the bills, so they should have a say in what goes on in the community.
All right, thank you. Mr. Parker.
Thanks. We are once again bringing, as Mayor Acri mentioned, Moline Police Department to the residents through the use of a mobile unit. This allows the residents to not only meet but interact with the Moline Police on a regular basis and build a real sense of community. Under the direction of, again, Chief Galt, I've personally witnessed very positive interactions between Moline officers and the residents of Moline. Our officers work to build strong relationship with the community so that when you need them, and oftentimes it is on the absolute worst day of your life, you know that these officers are here to help resolve the most difficult of situations. We have also worked to hire a diverse workforce so that those serving the residents more closely resemble the residents in both skin color and life experiences. We will be more successful with achieving this goal when real trust is built through all segments of our city through the police. I also happen to agree with Pat O'Brien regarding the neighborhood associations. We have some great ones over here in the second ward. We have, Overlook and Bluffs and Alvaro and my Glen Oaks Association, very active. And there's nothing like getting out of your house and actually meeting your neighbor. We've lived in locations where we've, lived there for years and know the people on either side of us, but 2 houses away, it's, the guy with the white car. So, it really, it's a matter of community. And I think those are very, very important. Pat, I do totally agree with you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Rayapati?
Yes, I believe the mayor and council should really make sure that there are built-in avenues for communicating with residents, a two-way kind of communication beyond our electronic or social media outreach. Because as I've heard at the doors, not everyone is online, and we do need to know our neighbors. So we need to find ways to do that in person. That's the kind of thing I've done for the last 2 years with community conversations, and I have made mention that I'm advocating for that kind of experience through ward meetings, the neighborhood association meetings, of course, and listening posts that I would hold as mayor. We also need to follow our own ordinances. In 2002, we passed a Human Rights Commission ordinance, and they haven't met since 2015. There's no one listed on that committee. And I think that's a key gap we see right now in terms of having tools for our neighbors to talk with one another and with the council to see if there are things we need to work on, or even get some positive feedback. And we can't only look at this as an avenue for complaints. It really is, if you look down at the ordinance, you can see that it's meant to be a communications tool. And with the fact that, you know, in the school district, we serve students that there are 60 languages spoken by our population, we really need to start thinking about how we reach people in multiple ways. It's a avenue that we need to go back and explore. I think that those avenues, we have to open up ourselves to critique as well as good ideas. And you know, there's a book called Just Mercy that the lawyer Brian Stevenson, and he says we need proximity with people in order to understand them. And that's what I'd like to see us do more. Be in proximity, be next to our neighbor to understand them better.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. I think that the biggest first step that city council and that members of the council and the mayor can take is to focus on building their network and reaching out to people and ensuring that when you are speaking to people, both personally as well as on the your city business, that you are seeking out people with different backgrounds than you. And that is about being very intentional about that. In the last 2 years, I've had the honor of serving on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at my office. And one of the things we've learned through trainings that have been offered, that we're learning, is that often the biggest problem in not bringing diverse voices to the table is that you're not surrounding yourself with those diverse voices. So that's the first thing I think we need to do as we look at that. And the second step to that, or going out, you're meeting people, you are building those relationships, is we're ensuring that when we seek feedback, we look at all the feedback and say, did we capture diverse voices? And if not, we go seek it out proactively. We don't just trust that it will come find us. And when we start to look for names and recommendations to add onto commissions and to add onto city boards, not onto task forces, but onto the commissions and boards who are making those decisions, making recommendations up to the council, that we ensure that we are helping to increase diversity on those boards as well. And I think that we also need to do that same thing of expanding that network and paying attention to what our hiring practices are across the board with all of our departments, and ensure that we are making every effort to represent the diversity that exists in our city within the people who are then giving service back to our city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you. I think the biggest thing we can do is to build community partnerships. And we've done some of that with the Floreciente neighborhood, and a lot of work has been accomplished there. Churches United is another example, and there's many other organizations. I'm a member of Economic Growth Corporation. They help to facilitate first-time homebuyer programs. I think home ownership is a key to helping Moline and addressing some of the housing issues. And Economic Growth Corporation, we've been discussing working together to bring a first-time homebuyer program that strengthens Moline's ability to assist first-time homebuyers. I'm also very much in favor of working with Bridge Investment Community Development Corporation. This is a mission-driven CDFI. I'm currently the board chair. And what this CDFI does is it infuses capital into underserved, low-income areas throughout Illinois and Iowa. And it does that by providing loans to loans with flexible terms, favorable rates, to give to small businesses to help grow, to create new jobs. And in 2020, there were two new programs created within the CDFI, within Bridge Investment. One is the Black-Owned Business Loan Program, which specifically targets small business, and the other is the Contractor Capacity Loan Program. I'd like to work with the City of Moline to bring those programs into Moline and to help to get those funds flowing into our Moline businesses that can use those. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Timion?
Yeah, I really appreciate that you specify that you want concrete solutions to these problems. June last year, the council invited Dr. Ford, or Reverend Ford from Project Now, to speak to the council after the George Floyd murder. And he asked us to give space for uncomfortable realities. He said, quote, We need to become comfortable with becoming uncomfortable. And he asks us to hear the realities of systemic racism. The council heard Reverend Ford on that day, but as a member of the community, I've not seen any action since. And I think that action speaks a lot louder than proclamations or task force. Now, on the contrary, the company I work for, stemming from the very same event, we brought in experts and we trained all of the directors all the way down on unconscious bias. And we reevaluated how we are working, how we are communicating to our customers, who and how we are hiring. And it spurred a whole new conversation and a whole new way of doing business and reaching out to the community, including activism and just really hiring practices. We wanted to hire people on the board of directors that matched the country. We wanted to hire more people that had various backgrounds and looked like the people that we're trying to sell to. And this is something that we can do on a city level as well. We're happy to invest money into traffic studies, and we're happy to invest money in hiring candidates for different high-level positions in the city. We should also be willing to invest money in a very important topic like this, which is helping the city leaders all the way down recognize and uncover maybe what these hidden biases are, and no one's fault, but then how we can systemically repair them and move forward correctly as a city to help everyone within Moline. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Zelnio.
Thank you. You know, racial division, a lot of complex problems and a lot of complex solution. I've got a simple little story, you know, and I, not only our mayor and our city council, but I think all mayors and all city councils could learn by spending some time with some of the great Moline High School students here in our community. And I've been blessed with two children who recently graduated from Moline High School. They're both currently attending Iowa State University. And while at Moline, Zach and Zoe were involved in the theater program, and they participated in some of the school plays. Don't ask me why, but my wife, Sarah, and I agreed to host and chaperone a number of the post-event cast parties at our home. It was a lot of fun. There was probably 50 plus great kids of all races that showed up to this get together. All of them had one thing in common. They did not see color. They didn't judge. They just all got along and were so proud of what they had accomplished on stage. You know, I thought to myself, what a great learning opportunity, not only for my wife and I, but for us as a community. You know, these kids are so great and so understand each other. And we should, as adults, should be so proud of those young kids. And we can learn from how they interact and how they accept each other. It's a simple thing to watch. It's a tough thing to change, but that's where we got to go. This is our future, these kids. And I feel we're in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Acri.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think this is a really complex issue. I think that there is a racial divide in the city of Moline, and it's not an accident that at the State of the City this year, we invited Maria Ontiveros from Mercado and Reverend Ford to talk about our partnership with Project Now. They're a part of that State of the City because it's such an important part of our city. The unique situations that are in the Hispanic neighborhood, and I think you can tell me all day long about the experiences that you have, but you know better than you could ever tell me. And so I think it's really important for us to bring all those different perspectives to leadership positions. That is why this council has advocated for turnover in our boards and commissions. We need that turnover because people get there and they want to stay there. And we need fresh perspectives. We need to be able to bring what we know, each of us, to those tables to make those decisions. You know, we talked about task force a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of task force because typically they're just saying things. They don't have the power to implement. I think you have to give the power to implement. And then on another issue that I think is critical is the wealth divide in Moline. So Alderman Berg touched on a little bit the digital equity of the situation with Metronet. You know, Metronet came, they were going to serve part of our community. They were going to leave our low income neighborhoods, 16% of our population, out of the mix. And if we made that decision to go forward, it was going to be a forever thing. Now we're talking about how do we incentivize a partner for good, high speed, high quality internet for our entire community. It's important for our property values. It's important for generational wealth transfer. It's critical, and we have to pay attention to those kinds of things when they come up. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Burke, you're muted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Open dialogue is important as we speak about racial issues. We need to be open and transparent with every issue that arises. And I am committed to having these conversations and dealing with those issues. As the current minority on the city council, everyone deserves a seat at the table, and I'm living proof of that. Another one of the organizations that I serve on is the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And one of the programs that we've implemented that we'll be administering this spring is to have a rental assistance program. And we are going to focus on even, the minority and the undocumented citizens to help them with rental assistance. So, everywhere that it is, it's just being open and transparent and having that dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All righty, we are moving on to question 4. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an increase in violent crime, domestic abuse, child abuse, mental health crisis, unemployment, as well as overall economic distress. How will you prioritize these issues on a city level? Is there one that you want to particularly focus on, and how? And we are going to start with Ms. Rayapati.
Okay. This pandemic truly has been a test of the infrastructures we have in place or don't for taking care of our citizens. And in terms of a particular focus I would take, I used to be a nurse. I worked in Huntington's disease unit that was a combination of mental health and surgical health. And so that informs my viewpoint. And I know that the health of a community can dictate that community's success. So back in October, I hosted a community circle online, a conversation with mental health care providers and social workers. And they made very clear to me that we have had trouble attracting mental health care providers to our community. So I really feel that we have to continue to work on those economic drivers that make us a place that people want to be. Because when they want to be here or they want to be our business partner, that increases the opportunities for job development, which decreases the stressors on people's lives that can lead to exacerbated abuse issues or mental health issues. So it might sound crazy to connect things back to what I've been talking about driving economic development, but that's really where it's at for me. We have to reestablish trust that we can provide that for our residents, and that will continue to attract people to our community. Our school district has really invested in that kind of attitude, that choose Moline attitude, with quality curriculum, with high quality teaching, and of course the building improvements that we've made across the district. So I think it's time for the city to do the same.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Mental health issues are a growing concern, not only in our city, but throughout the country. 2020 has been a difficult year for most. Some have lost loved ones, others lost jobs, and most have lost hope. Many of these issues relate back to personal and financial insecurity. As a city, we have provided financial support to businesses with a focus on businesses located and catering to low to moderate income areas of our city. If we can help these businesses up off the mat, then there is hope to all members of our community. For those residents in low to moderate income areas, we have provided internet service to the Moline Public School students who are otherwise ignored by the school system. Prior to this effort, these students had to compete with their peers who had all the tools necessary to be successful. We also provided computer devices and internet services to elderly residents who may have been afraid to venture outside of their homes for needed goods and services. These efforts, which may seem unnecessary to some, provide hope and opportunity to those disenfranchised members of our community. Additionally, the partnership between the Moline Police Department and the Center for Youth and Family Solutions helps provide support services to those who need support at a time when they are most vulnerable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Brien?
Thank you. This is a good, excellent question. The pandemic has shown that these issues do spike when people are trapped inside and they don't have much to do. I would like to see an expansion of our green areas and parks. We need more recreation, more sports programs. I know there's excellent with kids. If a kid's out playing on a team, a sports team, and they've got like, dad's club teams, the dad gets out there, the mom gets out there, it gets them a chance to get some recreation. As far as the mental health aspect of it, I do think we need more access to mental health care in our community. As I've said earlier with a family member, I do appreciate the Robert Young Center, but I think we could expand on that to help people with various mental illnesses. And the abuse, again, if you're talking about city staff, intervening in these abuse type situations, they're going to need a lot more counseling. And again, I think there's a spiritual component to this. I think folks, they need that spiritual component to help them cope with these problems that they have. You can't do it on your own. You really need help sometimes. And we really need that to help the police prevent some of these bad things from happening to people. And we need to give them the tools to be able to address those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macias?
Thank you. One of the things that exposed, the COVID-19 exposed, was the inequities that we have. A lot of people who lost their jobs or just were stressed about their jobs, having to go to work and not knowing if they were going to catch COVID. There was a lot of mental anguish, but it did expose a lot of inequities financially. Those who had money could keep their kids, pay somebody to watch their kids, take them elsewhere. Others had to struggle and figure out, what do I do with my kids? I still have to go to work. And that's where a lot of those inequities were exposed. And a lot of times the finances were the root of a lot of those mental problems, a lot of the anguish as well, a lot of unnecessary stress to individuals, anxiety, and so on. I would say with mental health, work with partners. There's a network, and I just forgot the name of the organization. They're creating a network, but I know there was a 211 number through the United Way to connect people with social service, but there's a network, and it escaped my mind just right now. But myself, when it comes to finances, I speak to people all the time about managing their money and just being good stewards of their money all the time. And really working at a credit union, a not-for-profit, it's a higher calling because there's a social aspect. When the pandemic hit, we worked with individuals to do mortgage forbearances. We worked with individuals so they could skip payments on loans because it wasn't about a profit. It was about making sure we take care of our members. And I did want to point out too, the city did take a misstep when they defunded the library, because we lost a lot of jobs, and that put unnecessary stress on employees who ended up losing their insurance and their paycheck. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Berg?
Thank you. So we talk about the mental health, the violent crime, child abuse, the unemployment, and the economic distress. As when we started this pandemic, we said we're in this together, and truly we are all in this together. I believe at our city level that we took we worked proactively to help with some of these issues for people in our community. As we cut down, we postponed water bills so that people weren't getting shut off during the crisis. We were instrumental in starting a platform for small businesses to get to know where to apply and how to apply for the programs so that they weren't so economically distressed. So I believe in, we've talked about Chief Galt tonight, and I truly believe Chief Galt is a leader at the police department to lead our department of getting to helping with some of these issues that we talk about tonight. One of the things, talking about the trailer with the being out in the community and with the help with the social work that worker that we implemented there in the police department as well. So, how do we get these, how do we get it back? Well, getting the kids back in school, getting the kids back to school, but also keeping our children safe at school as well. And, any of the city programs, that we implemented, again, with the housing and everything for the community, we've implemented some housing programs that for people that purchase houses in Moline, that they'll get assistance when purchasing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Acri?
Hi. So I have a couple of stories that motivate my number one concern in this area. And that is, I know a woman, and she's not a young woman, she's my age, and she struggled. She had a job. She was supposed to start on Monday, and she canceled it on Sunday night because she was getting evicted. I know another woman who's younger, 30 years old, has 6 children, just got a job, has been working for about a month, and is having a housing crisis. She's staying with a friend, and her 6 children exceed the rental limit, and she's getting kicked out, and it's a panic. I think our number one issue is housing stability. We have to keep people in their homes. We have to keep people with roofs over their heads. As programs drop off, as we get through this pandemic, we've got to come up with other clever ways to keep people in their houses, because if you don't have a house, if you don't have a place for your children to lay down tonight, you can't even start talking about these other things. It provokes these other things. We have to talk about the basic necessities that are at risk right now because of the pandemic. We aren't done with this yet. This recovery is going to be long, and we need to be putting city resources towards that effort, that community effort of keeping people in housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zelnio?
I agree with everybody. I mean, this pandemic has been difficult for all. And some of the candidates talked about their incomes were reduced, and the abuse and the health crises, the unemployment, it was just horrible, and along with the reductions, the city their revenues were reduced considerably also. And so as I look through all these things, that we need to help a lot of people and do a lot of things. But I think the number one thing has to be the fiscal responsibility. In order to deal with these key issues listed in this question, funding is the key. And the council has to be good stewards of the tax dollars that we've been entrusted with. The issues of this question are so very important, and they all come with such a heavy price tag. And I want to say that the council has to continue to navigate with great caution and work together with other organizations and combine their talents and their resources to help the residents address as many of their needs as possible. It's been a very, very difficult year for our community, but the performance of the Moline City Council has been outstanding, and I'm very confident in their future. I know we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Timion?
Hi, thank you. I've already mentioned that my oldest child suffered from mental health issues, and this is an unfortunate consequence or reality of people who have been through the foster care system or families that adopt kids from the foster care system. And over the years, we've had interactions with police and DCFS and psychiatric hospitals, and I've navigated this really broken mental health system to the best of my ability, and I haven't had the best success because a lot of people just don't. And when COVID hit, I saw a lot of these things we're talking about just break loose, and a lot of people have been dealing with, the housing and mental health and domestic abuse you mentioned. And I started asking the questions genuinely because I don't know what resources exist for people in distress. Are there women's shelters? How do people escape abusive spouses? How do you report a crime without retribution? And what resources exist for people that lost their jobs? And I, again, didn't know the answer. And to me, that's where the city can step in. These resources exist within the city, but they're oftentimes operating without the city's help. At the bare minimum, I think the city can use its resources to help educate people on what services are available and really how to use them. And they can use their pulpit to answer the question, what do I do when I have an abusive spouse, or I need to leave, or I need to get help with a mental health issue? It needs to become so obvious to people that 911 isn't the answer. Maybe they'll know this 211, like Alvaro mentioned, just what resources exist. And Moline has a great opportunity to really educate people, because these resources exist, but they're just out of touch for a lot. And that's where the breakdown can occur. And that's where we can utilize our positions to help better the people in Moline. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you. Mr. Timion, I'm glad you brought some of those things up. These are tough issues that definitely need to be addressed, but in the forefront, our police department is a leader in referring for those services, in having social worker on staff now, and being a resource to our community to get people to those right services. They've done a great job. We've heard this over and over, but I'm going to say it again. Moline has an incredible police department, and at the front of that, we have an incredible police chief in Darren Gold. He's brought great ideas to the department, to the city, and he is truly keeping us in the forefront of policy, policing, and leading by partnering. The police and social work combination is a great example of that. And I invite you to go down and visit with him, Mr. Timion, because he can explain to you how our police department has and continues to refer and to partner with different agencies and to make sure that people get to the right resources. So while I'm not an expert on how to handle, a lot of these issues in this question, domestic abuse, child abuse, mental health crisis, I am very confident that our police department is a leader in those areas. And what I would do to answer this question is I will just continue to strongly back the chief and his team as they bring solutions to the table. And the team have consistently brought things to us, and we have consistently approved those and moved our policing forward to help deal with these issues as they've come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. I think there are two important parts to how we want to address this. And one of them is a matter of leadership, more so than concrete action. And then next is figuring out those steps. And I think in a way of leadership, we all can step up to help ensure that the stigma that goes along with any of these, which are so highly stigmatized in our society, and people are treated as if it is a fault of their own, as if they've done something wrong. The assumption is that they played into their own trauma or to their own illness. I faced that myself since I was diagnosed with depression when I was 19. And until the last few years, I would be scared to say that in public, because you just never know how people feel about that. Or they look and say, you're such a jolly guy, how can you be depressed? And I think we need to focus on making sure we keep that in mind in the way we talk about it, and that we would treat these as people who have had issues brought to them and not as people who are at fault. as we turn to how we turn to address that, because this year has been so challenging and has exacerbated all of these things. The city has brought money through grants, and I think that was an excellent thing that the city did do this past year. I didn't get to say that earlier. And we need to, whenever possible, continue to build on those things, and find ways to bring money to fight against the negative effects, but the money is not always going to be there, and connecting people to those services at the police level is excellent. And I know the police are helping to push there, and they are accepting that responsibility. But I think whenever we can find a way to bring that message forward, to help intervention happen sooner by making ourselves a pulpit out of what services are available, by reviewing those things, I think even just talking about it, making it part of that conversation is a way we can bring those things to the front, especially in the economic distress category right now, because so many of these things are made worse by economic distress, by unemployment, and hopefully we can have that be the center of what we move forward with.
Thank you. All right, everyone, we are down to our last question. I don't see any questions from listeners, so I'm going to go ahead and read the one that's also coming from the NAACP. There has been a considerable turnover of key positions within Moline's city government staff. Some people have labeled the turnover as turmoil. Overall, without violating any HR policies, why do you believe this turnover has happened, and what can be done to increase staff morale at the city in response to this matter, presuming there is a morale issue? And we will start with Mr. Zelnio. I'm sorry.
Thank you. When I read this question and I saw that I was going to be the first one to answer it, I was a little bit cautious. I have not been privy to any of the closed session minutes or meetings. So the only information I have on this considerable turnover is what we've read in the paper. And I think we all can agree that not everything we read in the paper is always 100% factual. So considerable turnover. I think there's 350 employees in Moline currently, and we've had 15 or 20 people leave. I'm not a math expert, 4 to 5%. I don't think that's considerable. I also don't understand the reasons. Again, I have not been in those meetings. So if they are there for 30 years and they've retired, if there's a better job offer for them, I think it's difficult to say that it's turmoil. People leave jobs for a lot of reasons, and I hope they're leaving for a nice long retirement or a career advancement. But I do know that along with the people leaving, we have filled some positions with some very outstanding people. We've heard about Chief Galt tonight numerous times. I think if, like Mayor Acri said, if he's not listening, he certainly should be, because got a lot of accolades tonight and well-deserved. But there are a number of other people there at City Hall that have moved in, and I know they're looking at filling some of the open positions currently with interviews. So I think we have a bright future, and we will continue the progress moving forward. So thank you very much. Okay,
thank you. Mr. Timion?
Yeah, thank you. Unlike my opponent, I'm not going to take the position that the newspaper is inaccurate. I also have done research on my own by speaking with members or employees at Moline in various departments, not just one or two, but over the last few months, I've met people who work in the water plant, who work in public works, who work in the engineering department, accounting, and there's a constant theme. And it's exactly what you're reading in the newspaper, is that there is a toxic work environment. And the best solution for that is to elect new leaders. I will also argue that 15 out of 350 is a small number, unless you're looking at the fact that it is top leadership who are leaving. If these were 15 entry-level employees who left, I would agree with Mr. Zelnio. But when we are seeing high-level employees leave at the record that they are, and oftentimes for neighboring cities, not to retire early, not to move off to Florida, but to do the same job elsewhere. The problem is not the employees, it is what's happening here in Moline. And again, the best solution is new leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you. This is a tough question. Clearly, those of us that are on the council, our hands are tied, and the question relays that. It says, without violating any HR policies. Yes, there's been turnover. Yes, there is, typical turnover. There are retirements. There are people who have decided not necessarily to, as Mr. Timion suggests, to move and take a similar job, but either to take a job that has less demands or to take a promotion. Those things happen. They happen all the time. And as a matter of fact, the narrative in the paper has been that Moline has had huge turmoil. But if you look across the river, Bettendorf has had similar turnover, and that's not being reported. So there's a question of, why is it focused here? Well, the slate of candidates that are running against those who are in office have chosen to make that their big play, their big demand. And in doing so, that's probably a smart choice on their part, because those of us who are in office are unable to respond because HR policies prohibit that. So I would tell you that there's, in some cases, there's more to the story. And it takes time for those things to develop and to get to a point where they could be spoken about. But I would go back to, we have a great staff. We have phenomenal people, and we have replaced some of those people who have left with exceptional people. Again, Darren Gauld has been talked about all night. Chief Snyder has been an exceptional replacement. We have several more to replace. We're in the process of doing that. We want to do it systematically and make sure that it happens, that we get the best people that can serve the city of Moline in the best way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you. My perspective on this question has come from the conversations I've had with people who work in the city, with people who have chosen to leave, and also going door to door with and meeting a great number of retirees. And some of those are people I've met through this campaign, and some are people I've known for a long time. And a lot of it comes back to the morale and to that culture of crisis, or a feeling of chaos. And there were two things that really stuck out when people talk to me. It is that while we have made some great hires, and no one is disputing that, I think that is true. We have found some really great people to come into our city. We still have had other positions that we have left unfilled, and we have left for multiple years openings, and we have not just at the high levels, but at low levels, not provided enough staff to provide support for everyone. And people start to feel overwhelmed, because if the person at the next desk or off the next truck isn't hired back, that means you're doing their job. And that has been a feeling of that, as well as what seemed like for years, and what seemed like in the communication from the council to be a threat to look to outsource additional jobs. And I think when we saw the report that came back from the institution that looked at how to reorganize the city, we did not see as many places where it was recommended to cut or reduce that staff. But that was the way it was pitched, and that was the way it felt to me as someone who was reading that. And that's what I was told by members of the city staff, like I said, those who left and those who are still there, that's how they felt it was going, and that they started looking for jobs because they thought their jobs were going to be cut. And that is a kind of security that just should not be something someone should have to live with. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rayapati?
Yes, from the time I worked as a nurse, as the lead nurse on a unit, to the time I've had now 20 years in education and various leadership positions in that role, I've learned that there are three things you need to have smooth organizational operation and positive relationships with your staff. And that is trust, truth, and respect. And as my colleagues have said, when you talk to people, you find a variety of viewpoints on those three aspects of the way things are working right now. So, for example, it's very difficult for employees to trust what is told to them when they're working one day trying to make masks in the library for the city staff, and the next day they find out they're laid off with very little to no explanation. It's very difficult to feel that you are respected when you are publicly derided for the level of cleanliness in our parks over the summer, but the council didn't provide seasonal staff or enough staffing, left positions open, so people were trying to get the work done. That's very difficult work with many fewer hands. So those are the kinds of things that lead to this decrease in morale, the reasons why people start to look elsewhere. And it's my goal as a leader to repair trust, return respect for all types of work, and really tell the truth about the situations rather than spinning a story about why things happened the way they happened.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parker.
I'm really glad that nobody in the audience asked a question, because I think this is a great opportunity, and I enjoyed this question. So I'm going to answer it. So to the best of my ability, I believe turnover in all organizations, including the city of Moline, is normal. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average municipal employee tenure is 6.6 years. We have seen many seasoned employees leave the city through retirement, resignation to find work elsewhere, and in some cases, they claim that they were forced out. I would suggest that personally, knowing some of these former employees, that they may have been uncomfortable with a level of accountability that was not within their comfort level. Holding employees accountable to their behaviors so that our residents come first is our mission. If someone doesn't like being accountable for their behaviors and their lack of performance, then maybe it is time for them to look for employment elsewhere. That is their choice. Our goal is to employ only the brightest and best, and I would argue that Moline has done just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
There, I muted myself. Sorry about that. I had to come back on my phone.
Not a problem.
I believe that we pay a lot. Thank you. We pay a lot of money to staff. Moline usually pays the most of any city. They did back when I was on the city council. And you have to hold that staff accountable, absolutely, no question. But you also have to listen to that staff, because you're hiring them, like the upper staff, you're hiring them for their expertise. And I'll even say I've had trouble with staff before in my past, and we were able to work it out without people leaving. Basically, what you need to do is make sure that this staff is on the same page with what you, the elected official, you're the policy maker. If you get elected to the city council, you're going to be the policy maker, and as a group, you're going to decide what policies you want to pursue as a city. Now, if you have someone that is not, necessarily agreeing with that, then you need to talk to them and say why, and get the information, and maybe they have had a similar experience in Akron, Ohio, or wherever they came from, and you can utilize that experience. That's awesome that you can do that. But on the other hand, if they're not agreeing with the way you want to move the city, then you need to talk. You need to look at what they're doing and critique that and make sure that in congruent with what the elected officials are doing, because we represent the people and they work for us. We don't work for them.
Were you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, Mr. Macias.
Yeah, for me, I have experience sitting on different types of boards, dealing with personnel issues at high level, executive director positions. And there's definitely has to be between a board, which I view the city council like a board. They have to gel. There has to be a common goal. You have to work together. And while yes, turnover happens, that doesn't explain why it takes 2 years to fill a position of economic development. That doesn't give that explanation. What's taking so long? Well, we may have missed out on deals. You need talent to be in those positions regularly. How come it doesn't explain why we had one after another people leave the main position of the city administrator? That's not just regular turnover. To me, I see it more of a trend. And those are key positions. Again, good paying positions, positions that in other places, they're probably way longer, the tenure is longer than the 6 years that Mr. Parker had mentioned. So to me, it's more than that. You can call it healthy turnover, or you got some good talent out of it, great. But that doesn't answer what's taking so long in filling some of those positions, and why are we getting it wrong one time after another? Who's at fault for that? So really the solution to me is to get other perspectives there, get new people. So me as a resident of Moline, I saw that and I thought, you know what, there's something there. We need a different perspective. And we also need to lead with compassion, because it really hurt me to see that they defunded the library staff because people lost their insurance and they didn't have to do that to the staff. They could have really been used to help people through the COVID crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Berg?
Yeah, and I will start with, thank you, but I will start with, again, trying to not get into the whole HR policies and being cautious with that being said. To talk about that, I know I keep hearing over and over again that, we've gone without an economic development director for 2 years. Part of it, we got to take into, account too, that we've been in COVID for a year now. And, I'm not really sure who would want to be coming to a community during COVID. I know that, I, as a realtor, dealing with people every day and have worked since COVID and had people that were, I'm not going to take this job change now. I'm not moving. I'm putting myself on hold right now. I'm not ready to buy a house. There's people out there that I'm not ready to make a job change right now due to COVID. So, I don't like to hear the 2 years, because we've been in COVID for a year now. So it'd be safe to say we've been without an economic development director for a year, because I don't count COVID as the year. I also keep hearing about the chaos and the micromanaging. Of all the council members, there are only 2 people that are retired. The rest of us that are on council work 40 plus hours at our businesses. So, we don't have time to be down there. So it's for the chaos and the micromanaging that I'm hearing out there. We don't have time to be down there with the chaos and the micromanaging. So, you can't fault people. JD, who worked for us for 30 plus years, he's got grandchildren now and he wants to retire. So we should fault him for that. Or Kathy Carr, who retired. We should fault her for that. We can't fault these people. They want to retire and spend time with their families. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Acri?
So as you can imagine, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with this question. I've been asked it so many times. And here's the part I hate about it is I don't know, I'm not living in other people's skin. I don't know what the stressors were, if it was being challenged, if it was being asked questions, if it was wanting to do something different with their careers. So it's a really hard question to answer from outside of the person that left. I can't answer it, but I can tell you that the work we do at the city is hard. People come at me angry about some situation they can't figure out how to fix, and they're frustrated and they're looking to me to fix it. And sometimes I can, sometimes I know the path to resolving that issue and it's so rewarding, but it doesn't mean it's not hard. So I understand that part. So that's the difficult part of that question, is that I don't have the answers for it. The love part of that question is, I'm not being asked why I didn't put the residents first during this pandemic. You know, I'm not being asked, why didn't the city come to the side of the businesses that were struggling to pay their rent during the pandemic? You know, those aren't the questions that are being asked. I'm not being asked why my garbage didn't get picked up. I'm not being asked why my water is contaminated. We are running a really good city, and it's the taxpayers are our customers and they're viewed that way. And we hold ourselves to a really high standard. And so that's the relationship I have with that question. But I think really good things are on our future. We had 42 awesome candidates for the city administrator position. We interviewed 5 of them this week. They look good. We're bringing 3 into town, and we're so excited about that leadership that's coming to Moline. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, that is the end of your questions. Now it is time for your closing statements. And you get a minute to make these statements. And Ms. Acri, we will start with you.
Thank you. Oops. I'd like to thank you all for attending, and thank you to our hosts. As your mayor, I've put money back in your pocket by being a good steward of your hard-earned tax dollars, increased opportunities for people to find jobs and businesses to prosper, and increased transparency so government is accountable to you. I've addressed the needs of the entire community in a way that is equitable and allows us all to prosper. I'm proud of the work that we have done in the city of Moline. Tonight, I think we laid out a vision for Moline's future, and my vision is to continue to move forward and build on our positive changes over the last 4 years. Change is hard, and some want to go back. However, being a leader means building a collaborative vision of where we ought to be as a community. I believe that is moving forward for all Moline residents, and I ask you for your vote for mayor on April 6th.
Thank you. Ms. Berg.
Thank you. And thank you to the NAACP for hosting this forum. It was very informative. I'm sure people that attended this, just got to the enjoyment of getting to hear everyone's different perspectives, and some the same. But first, like I said, one of the things that, experience, we want to keep our experienced people at the city right now, because our experienced leaders, because as we have this I-74 footprint, now is the time for experience, not unexperienced. So, we want to keep our budgets balanced, and, keep that tax rate levy low. And so I ask for your vote to keep, again, like the mayor said, to keep money in your pocket, the taxpayers' pockets. So I ask for your vote on April 6th.
Thank you. Mr. Macias.
Well, first off, thank you very much to the NAACP and all the great work that you do. I've met some of you before in doing community work years back. So I know that the work that you're doing is in line with the work that I've been doing for a very long time. What we need in the city now, we need a fresh start. We need new ideas. We need big ideas. And myself, I am very experienced with community work. I sit on the board of the Quad Cities Chamber. I also sit on the Growth Corporation board. And I work for a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. And I have the skills, I have the experience that is gonna make a difference. So I'm asking humbly for your vote. I want my fellow Moliners to look at everything they've seen and take a honest look and say, can we do better? And my answer is yes, we can do better. And I'm asking you to vote for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
I'd like to thank the NAACP for hosting this forum tonight. And I'm going to do something that I think is important to do. I want to thank every alderman candidate that's running, because when that parking lot is full at night, when you attend that council meeting, they're not all there to tell you you're doing a good job sometimes. And I know that it's an important position to take. It's one of the great things about our country. Anybody can run for office, and I salute you all, win or lose. I think it's one of the blessings of our democracy. But whatever happens, the good of the citizens of Moline and the betterment of our city has to be paramount in all your decisions. You've said we need to cut here and cut there. But I'm telling you, we can't scrimp on a lot of the things that we've talked about tonight. We're going to need a capital improvement program. These streets were beat up by the worst winter we've had in 20
Mr.
years.
O'Brien?
But anyway, in conclusion, I would like to ask you to vote for Pat O'Brien in Ward 6 on April 6th.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
O'Brien.
you.
Yes, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Rock Island County NAACP, Augustana College, as well as all the participants this evening. As you look around town, it's obvious that there are two teams wanting to lead our city. These two groups have very different agendas. One team has dreams, unfounded criticism, and the desire to employ as many people as possible, regardless of accountability and with reckless disregard for your hard-earned money. The team I align with has over 36 years of experience on the Moline City Council. We have lowered your property tax rate annually, cut the city's debt in half, and continually provided premier services while operating with a balanced budget. We can provide a steady, experienced hand as we move the city of Moline forward. If you prefer facts over fiction, and you want your representatives to account for every penny of your hard-earned tax dollar, please vote for Stephani Acri for mayor, Sonia Berg, Keven Schoonmaker, John Zelnio, and myself, Dave Parker, as your alderman. I pledge that we will continue to make sure that our residents come first.
Thank you. Ms. Rayapati?
Yes, thank you again to everyone. Moliners, I am a child of an immigrant, a granddaughter of a Minnesota farmer. I'm a sister to a scientist and a mother of daughters. But in addition to all that, I am a leader, a listener, and a doer. And 4 years ago, voters put their trust in me to help improve Moline's schools. And I've been able to deliver on those expectations through teamwork, hiring incredible district leadership, managing decision-making in one of the toughest years for education, and improving our community assets like our high school and other buildings while living within our means. Now I ask voters to put their trust in me to restore Moline's reputation as a place where people want to be. Our future together is limited if we buy the line that only prior service on city council qualifies someone to lead our community. If we bend to fear-mongering and false claims, we can do better than the last 4 years. New perspectives can combine with current council members to provide Moline residents the services they expect. Please vote Sangeetha Rayapati for mayor.
Thank you. Actually, 1 second. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you this evening to the NAACP, to Augustana, and to all the participants. I think that you have seen two visions. That is absolutely right. I've never certainly thought of myself as being deceiving or fictitious, but I think that comes back to something we can look at in our experience. You know, we all have our experiences, and the experience I've been focused the most on, what drove me to get in this race, is the experience that I was having as a resident of Moline, the experience I've heard repeated back to me from so many people as I've knocked on their doors in the last 6 months, both in collecting petitions as well as in encouraging them to vote for me. And I think that, you've heard many of the points, but I think we can move forward. We can do better. We can do more than just say we're going to promise to do more of the same. Fiscal responsibility and growth can go hand in hand. And to say that that's not the case is not true. And that we can hopefully move forward. And I ask you to vote for James Patrick Schmidt and to vote for change on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schoonmaker?
Thank you. Thank you to the NAACP and to Augustana, which is my alma mater, by the way. Appreciate that. Augie has hosted. I think it's been a great event, and I think it's great to hear the difference in the voices. So I think that's important for the voters, and I think that will ring true and loudly. I hope that what the voters hear is that we want to continue to help Moline thrive. Moline is a leader on the Illinois side, and we want to continue to keep it that way. And we will consistently balance the budget. We balanced it through COVID. We will consistently continue to do that. We want to focus on reducing property tax rates, keeping dollars back in the citizens' pockets. And I want to focus on continuing to cut debt. We've cut $25 million. I want to continue to cut that and lower it. I ask for your vote for 6th Ward Alderman. Please vote for Keven Schoonmaker on the 6th.
Thank you. Mr. Timion?
I want to thank the NAACP. It's been my honor to be a part of this. I believe that Moline's success can be measured by the quality of life of the people who live here. Unfortunately, my opponent and a few others repeatedly stress that success is measured by the bottom line of a spreadsheet. Mayor Acri just 10 minutes ago referred to the residents of Moline as our customers. And we continue to repeat false claims about debt being cut in half when it's just really a portion of the debt. And we've done this by paying our bills on time. I believe that Moline, its best days are ahead of us, but to do that, we need to vote for change, and we need to put people first, not the bottom line of a spreadsheet. Again, I ask for your vote on April 6th, and I ask everyone in Moline to vote for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnio?
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you just once again for including us at your event this evening. As I said earlier, my goal tonight was to honestly and intelligently answer your questions, and I hope we accomplished that goal. And your takeaway tonight was positive and insightful. You know, often the answers to these complex issues take a lot of time to come to fruition. Compromise, along with the pledge of the City Council to understand the needs and the dreams of the residents of Moline, are important. As Moline's 4th Ward Alderman, I will always have the residents' best interest my #1 priority. Please trust in my abilities and my passion to make Moline just a little better place to live and grow your family. Please cast your vote for John Zelnio, either on or before April 6th. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure speaking with all of you. You have definitely given your citizens something to think about. It was very hard for me this time around, not an agreement or it was hard keeping a straight face. You guys got some really thoughtful responses. And at this time, I will turn everything over to our president, Miss Bonnie Ballard.
We can't hear you.
You're muted. Mrs. Ballard, you're muted.
President Ballard, you are muted.
I thought, I was going to do that.
There you go.
Early on. Okay, all right, thank you. I just wish to thank Mrs. Belinda Tyler Jameson, the immediate past president of the Rock Island County NAACP branch, for her entire and energetic efforts that were performed in ensuring this forum was successful. Ms. Belinda is the Political Action Chair and the Candidates Forum Chair. We certainly thank her for continuing to serve the Rock Island County NAACP communities in this political arena. We thank you too, the candidates, for your participation tonight and for your willingness to share, inform, and explain to the audience the importance of your specific platforms. I felt the passion each one of you exhibited tonight. During your presentation, I heard over and over, accountability. I heard transparency. I heard leadership. I heard trust, truth, respect. I heard the use of resources to educate. You guys I hope that the audience picked up on everything that you said. We are also thankful for the courtesy of Augustana College for facilitating the Zoom webinar for the Candidates Forum. We thank Mr. Kai Swanson, Augustana's president's assistant, who graciously served as a host and timekeeper for the second time. And we absolutely thank Rita Gustafson and her team that kept us on point. Again, for the great performance by the moderator, Dr. Yolanda Granberry Pugh. Thank you, Dr. Granberry Pugh, for your excellent performance as a Candidates Forum moderator. Dr. Pugh is an English teacher at Rock Island High School, and of course, is a longtime member of the NAACP. And the greatest thank you goes to the virtual audience. We thank you for your attendance and your participation. Please exercise your voting rights responsibilities and encourage others to vote in the upcoming elections. Stay healthy, stay safe, and good night.